We're going to begin with Tehillim, Kapitel Tes Zayin.
Dam David, Shomeliel, Kichi Chasisi Bach. Adonai, Adonai, Ata, Tavasi, Balalecha. Nikdoshim Asher Baretzema, Adirei Kol Chefsevam. Yirbu Atvosam Achem Haru, Balaslich Niskayem Midam, Balasashesh Mosam Al Svasoy. Adonai menos chelki v'cholsi, Ata tamich gorali. Chavalim naflu li banimim, Af nachala shafra aloi. Avarech es Adonai asher yatzani, Af leilos yisruni chil yasoi. Shivisi Adonai l'negdi samid, Ki mimini ba'lemot. Achein somach libi v'yogel kivodi, Af nisari yishkol lo betach. Ki lo sazov nafshi lishol, Lo sitein chasidcho liros shochas. Todien yirachayim sovas machot esponecha nimos b'mincha netzach. Kapitel Chav Gimel. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsor. Yinos deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchos yanaleini. Nafshi yishovev yancheni magvei tzedek l'man shemo. Gam geila begeit al-mobes, lo yirol ra get om-yodi shivdecha mishantecha, heima yenachamuni. Lefonai shulchan neged tzororoi, dishanta b'shem roshi kosi rivoyo. Ach tov v'chesed yifuni kol yemei chayai, shafti b'veis Adonai liorech yamim.
Be seated. We're going to begin with Divrei Hisoros from Rabbi Enoch Platnik.
A number of years ago, a very prominent member of the Chicago community was nifter without warning, very suddenly. Baron Soloveitchik was maspid, and he said, "My head believes it, but my heart can't accept it." It tells the Rosh Hashiva, B'chaim Dov Keller, was maspid after of Soloveitchik. And he said, an Autumn Gadol can at least believe it in his head. I can't even believe it in my head. Forget about my heart. All of our senses are dull. What can we say? It doesn't register in our heart. It doesn't register in our head. We accept the Midas Adin. We're coming to give kavod and say goodbye to a friend, a Rav, a prince, and a king. Chazal darshan on the word Ish ha'ashkolos, Ish shehakoil boy. One man who encompasses so many milas, so many traits, so many midas, so many things to admire and look up to. And the rule by a melech, the rule by a king, is melech pirates like gather. Nothing stands in the way of a king. If the king has to go breach through walls and fences, then we breach it for the king. Over these last couple of days, our melech, this king, Man Malki Rabbanon, who's a king? Rabbanon are kings. We were pirates getter. We broke down all the fences. The psak was given to David like Reuven should come back to us. It would have been a miracle. It would have been an ace. We're not allowed to daven for miracles. And the psak that was given us that we can daven for a miracle. For this miracle. Someone who's a Rabbi Mitzrichim like someone that everybody needs. We're allowed to daven for miracles for a tzibur, for a community. And the psak was given, we can daven for a miracle. Melech, pirates like Eder, there are no rules. Chanukah, we never say Hespedim. But Melech, pirates like Eder, for a Melech, there are no rules. Man Malki Rabbanon, we break all the rules for this prince and for this Melech. Rabbi first was asked to be mastered by telephone as he's out of town. And he said it doesn't pass. It's not l'fi chvaydoi or Rabbi Gross, Zechat Tzadik Livracha, to be mastered over the telephone. What a fitting comment for someone who was so makbid and so particular with everybody else's dignity and everybody's covered. You didn't even have to know him that much or that well. We had an encounter a few years ago. Rabbi Gross and Rabbi First, Yibadol Chaim, had to go speak over something that was very, very important, a community issue. And they decided they had to fly to Philadelphia to speak it over with Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky. And they asked me to come along because I was a Talmud. They thought the meeting would go a little bit easier if I would be there as well. So we made the trip together. And we met for maybe an hour. My gross, really, I never met Rav Shmuel before. And at the end of the meeting, the Rosh Hashiva called me over. And he asked, "There is their Rav. Who is this Rav?" I was tired of mention. He's such a precious person. I was Chacham. He was so wise. The Rosh Hashiva saw how this young Rav saw right through everything with one look. Like the greatest Chacham. He felt he was the smartest person in the room. As I tired of mention, Rosh Hashiva said, was a tire image. That's how chashuv. I remember once we were sitting next together at a chasana, as we often did. I loved sitting next to him. Always had something to say, beautiful to Torah, beautiful insights on what's happening in the world. I got home, and for some reason we didn't leave at the same time. He had to leave earlier than I had to leave. We didn't see each other before we left. And we must have spent hours talking together at this chasana. And he sent me a text message when I got home. And it said, didn't want to leave without saying goodbye. And I was looking at this text message this morning. You can't leave without saying goodbye. The Gemara says, Rabbi said, Achim li best pay to say warm words by my husband. To Hasam Ka'imna, because I'm standing there. Rabbi Gross is standing here on his throne, in his malchus, in his palace. To Hasam Ka'imna. We can't leave without saying goodbye. A little while ago, I was in West Rogers Park for Shabbos, and I asked him if I could come by and visit. At the moment, he thought he was going to be home. He wound up being in Glenbrook for Shabbos. And then afterwards, I asked him how he was doing, and he sent me a message. He said, all things considered, pretty good. I would have loved to see you. This really said it all. This is a man who knew exactly what was happening. And a melech, a king, has control. A melech has shlita over everything. And Reuven had such control over the situation, he had control over himself. In melech b'layam, he had such a wonderful, wonderful yachas and relationship without feeling control to this beautiful tzibur. He saw everything from the prism of Toiv. He saw everything with a Toiv ayin, with a good eye. I remember when we were in Koil together, after Moshe Feinstein was nifter, so it was my turn to say a Musar Vad on Friday morning. And I mentioned a few things about Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe was known for his softness and his sweetness. And I wanted to show it was another side, that when Rav Moshe had to take a stand, he took a stand, and he could be very principled and very tough. And Reuven came over to me afterwards. He said, you got it all wrong. He said, you got to look at Rav Moshe through the prism of his Toiv and Chesed. That's the only way you can look at him, because that's what he was. And we had a little bit of a discussion about this. It was a friendly machlokes. And I realized later who I was talking to. Everything in his world was looked at through the prism of Toiv. Every person was Toiv. Every situation was good and could be somehow figured out how to solve it. Because he was such a Toiv ayin, everything that he saw was through that prism of Toiv. He was a big dreamer. I remember before this shul began, we were talking one day, what are we going to do when we get older? And he said, I'm going to make a shul for the people that don't feel that they have a shul for them. And I said, you're crazy. And he said, you're right, Henach, I am crazy, but I'm going to do it anyway. And he did. And look what he did. This palace, this malchus, this gem, where he loved every single person that walked in this door. Whether you davened here, whether you were a member here, it didn't make a difference. That was his Toiv ayin. I just want to conclude, Erev Shabbos, there's no time for arichos. But Reuven very much admired the resilience of Holocaust survivors. We used to talk a lot about survivors of the Holocaust, and his family and my family. We had a lot of common experiences. And he so admired that midah of resilience, that even when we feel that Hashem he's hurting, and he's putting us down, we're going to bounce up off the ground. And that's what they did, and that was always his model of people that refused to stay down. And for that I have to tell the mishpacha, Yechi Reuven v'al yamayis. Reuven leapt. He's living through all of you. B'shas Pitirasei shel Rabbi, the Gemara says, when Rabbi died, he said, L'banai ani tzarech, I need my sons, and they came into the room. And he said, "Hizaru b'kvaydimchem." Please be careful with the covet of your mother, the queen and the princess of this family and of this shul and of this kihila. Learn from your father, learn from your husband, Mrs. Gross, the power of resilience. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not chas v'shalom walking away from us. He's bringing us more close in ways that we just can't understand. This is the legacy that Reuven is leaving behind to all of us. That toiv ayin, this shul, it'll be everybody's biggest achus to find some inner strength that he would be so proud of every single one of us. Machash and Dimi al Kalpanim. We go and love us.
We now call upon Rabbi Leonard Mattingly.
At the beginning of Pirkei Avot, at the Mishnah which describes the establishment of the Anshe Knesset Agdolah and their entire raison d'etre, we read that among the three things that needed to occur was Hamidu Talmidim Harbeh, establish many, many students. And obviously, most people are thinking at this moment, in this room, which is so filled and overflowing with students of Rabbi Gross, that's the reason I begin with those words. And yet, Rav Moshe Chaim Lau, Hashem Yikom Damo, the father of Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau, said, that's not the way we should translate that Mishnah. Hemidu Talmidim Harbeh is not proper Hebrew. It should be Hemidu Talmidim Rabim. Put forth many students. What does Harbeh mean? Rav Moshe Chaim Lau said it means that our obligations in the transmission of Torah never end. That it's a work of Harbeh. That what you do is not just create students, but teach them. And teach them over and over and over again. The job never stops. And those were the words I thought of when I first heard that my dear friend had passed away. Reuven and I worked together for more than 30 years. It was an interesting match. A Skokie boy and a Lakewood boy. He came from a fascinating world. Not just the world of survivors, but also from the world of people who thrived in areas that you would have never imagined. I still remember when I was working in the yeshiva bookstore, when there was a yeshiva bookstore, and we used to get very special books from a printing house called Sefer Herman Press, which was Sefer Hermon Press, Hermon, we understand now. And I only found out what that press was that published those rare manuscripts and scholarly books when I got to know Reuven, and he said, that's my father. His father was the publisher of scholarly works that people would have never imagined. And Reuven was a person who brought all of those strengths together, and he brought those strengths to teaching. Hemidu Talmidim Harbeh. Never stopped working. He never stopped. And I had the opportunity to work with him, to fight with him, to enjoy with him, because it was always about how we can help our students ever more. When we started, have email, and there was no internet, and there was no cable television. When we started, we had challenges. And then those challenges changed, and they continued to change and continued to evolve. And so did we, but especially so did he. Just recently, we were talking about, before he got sick, about the new challenges we face. The differences we have in educating our children, where once upon a time it was learning the blot, and instead it now is loving the blot. And Rabbi Gross, he got it. I remember when my son was entering the academy, and there was a question whether he would start in the freshman shiur with Rabbi Gross or skip to the sophomore shiur. And I had a meeting with Rabbi Gross. I said, what do you think? And he gave me his opinion. And Avi ended up in that shiur with him for the year because I understood if he started with a Rebbe, like Rabbi Gross, he would learn what we would call the meat and potatoes of how to learn. He would learn how to take apart a sugya, he would learn how to love, he would be able to be ready to grow in Torah because he had Rabbi Gross. He was that bridge. And there are so many worlds that he bridged. We don't have as many bridges in Chicago. He bridged the world of Europe and the United States. He bridged the world of Lakewood and Chicago. He bridged the worlds of Torah and modernity. He bridged the worlds of Sharet Tzedek and the broader Jewish community. Over the past couple of weeks, so many of his Talmidim have come forth. I know they've reached out to the family, and they've reached out to me asking what we can do. 2 nights ago, I received a text at about 11 o'clock at night from a group of girls at Ida Crown. They wanted to do a challah bake. So they texted me, can we have the building? And they did, and they brought one of their teachers along, 2 of their teachers along, who had been students also of Rabbi Gross, and went into education. And they baked challahs, and they said all of Tehillim. Last night at the Kotel, there were a group of alumni who came together to daven for Rabbi Gross, because he touched their lives, and nidu talmidim harben. In the Mishnah Berurah on Hilchos Chanukah, the Chafetz Chaim makes a comment, and he says, "The kulam milta the Chanukah ikra hodahi." What Chanukah is all about is giving thanks. That's the core of Chanukah. And that was the core of Rabbi Gross's life. His entire life was hodah, was thanksgiving, was gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to Pearl, to his children, to his family, to his community, to his friends, and to everyone. Kulam milta hodah. And finally, just one thought. The last day that Rabbi Gross came to Ida Crown to teach, he couldn't finish the morning. He taught one class, one period, and then he came into my office to apologize, but he said he doesn't have the strength, he can't do it. And I looked at him, and I knew that we would figure it out. But I also did what I normally did with Rabbi Gross. I joked around a little bit. And I told him, I said, you know, Reuven, when you get better, don't you dare come to me for any vacation days. You're using them all up. You're going to have to work every single day. We had a couple more conversations since then by phone. But that was the last thing I told him in person. And the one request I make of him, that he fulfill it. Because now he's a good debater for all of us. And he better not take any vacation days. because we need him. His family needs him. Our community needs him. His Talmidim need him. And I know there are many of the students who are watching, many who are here today. And what I need to tell you is very simply remember two things. Hemidu Talmidim Harbe. That's what his life was about. It wasn't in number, it was in quality. It was the efforts he put forth so that you can put forth those very same efforts. And Kula Milta Hoda, and everything in his life he was grateful for. And we have to be grateful for his life and everything he gave to us. Kula Milta Hoda. It's an awesome task. And yet, he prepared us for it. His neshama continue to inspire us.
We have maxed out the Zoom link. There's over 1,000 people on the Zoom. We'll be sending out a second link shortly. I'd like now to call upon Rabbi Reuven come.
I'd like to make my remarks very short because of the time. We have a video in our family at 9:41 a.m. Many of you may know this, that my father Shalom was benching as a kohen at a Pidyon Aben. And at 10:10 he was nifter on a recliner in his office, which he often used because he got up early to learn and go to his office and take cat naps, and he never woke up. We were in shock beyond shock. We were in pain beyond pain, and we felt that our world could never continue. So I'd like to tell the family, you are in pain beyond pain, and you are in shock beyond shock. But Kadosh Baruch Hu gives the ability to continue. I don't remember how many years ago it was, but when Shari Tzedek started, and they had their official, I don't know what the word was, installation, beginning, I spoke. And at that time I said over Shamshon Hirsch on the words Puravu. Puravu, he says, means to make a copy. To make a copy of oneself. That's what a Rav is supposed to be. Puravu. To procreate and make a copy. I don't know if there's another shul like this that was started by a Rav who became a father to everybody in his kehillah. I'm telling you that only because people came to me in the street over the last week and said to me that they're lost. They are completely lost. They're just lost. They don't know how many people have a relationship with a Rav and can say when their Rav is sick that they're just lost. This is a shul that exemplifies Shamshon Raphael Hirsch, that a Rav is Puravu. And they also need the same chizuk. But Reuven and I both have the same father. Long Beach Talmidim like to say, Achim min ha'av. We are brothers of the same father. And Reuven and I mourned together many times on the phone late at night How can we make it without the leadership of our Rebbe? The one question I regret that I never asked the Yeshiva was, how did he make it after his Rebbe died? I regret that again, I never asked him that question. The answer is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us koyach. The Yeshiva held very, very stark over Reuven. Held him in very high esteem. Reuven Meir we know means light. Reuven Rashi says, Ru, look at the light. The Mashgiach Zatzal of Nosson Wachvogel would tell us during Chanukah, it's the light of Chanukah that dispels the darkness. Chazon Ish Zatzal says that a person is related to the time that he is born and to the time that he is nifter. Reuven, literally, right in the middle of Chanukah, the time of the great light, the time of the great or, you have the ability to dispel darkness. So even though the family is in so much pain, and the Kehillah is in so much pain, Talmidim, as we mentioned, they're in so much pain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the strength to be able to survive. And then he gives us the strength to be able to grow. As Rabbi Plotnik mentioned, which I say, I know Reuven close to 50 years. Probably more than most people in this room. He was always a thinker and a deep thinker. And he took that ability to think deeply and utilize it for his Kehillah, for his Talmidim, and for Chicago in a very deep way. A very deep way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give the family chizuk. He will give the family chizuk. In time, the pain will subside. The memories never go away. The pain will subside. The family will go weiter and grow weiter, and the Kehillah will go weiter and grow weiter, and so will the Talmidim. On a personal level, I will miss, as Rabbi Matanki said, I too, at 11 o'clock at night, had disagreements with Reuven. We had a lot of agreements, a lot of disagreements. We talked through the sugya. His opinion was always choshev, always choshev. It would take a lot to replace him for what he did. Should be only with simchas. I'd like to talk longer. I have much more to say. Bila Moas Lanetzach Umoch Hashem Dimma Me'al Kol Panim.
A second Zoom link has been opened. It's the Zoom link we've been using for the Tehillim throughout the week. You now call upon Rabbi Moshe Katz.
There's a letter from my Rabbi Reuven Zatzal that he wrote after the Ptira of a very, very close friend and chavrus of his. If I remember correctly, what he said was, he was sitting at the Hespedim, and he said, thinking to himself, why do we need so many Hespedim? Say one word and everyone will know what you mean. He said, say Arala. Everyone will know. All I have to say is Reuven. Such a dear friend, such a yedid, we spent hours and hours, hundreds of hours together, talking, schmoozing, analyzing, inspiring each other, crying, laughing. All I have to say is Reuven. And everyone here could say, dear friend, mentor, husband, tati, so many different words that different Talmudim refer to him as Rabbi, whatever it might be. All we need to say really is Reuven. I never read a speech because I don't feel that I can put myself into it. On the other hand, I was afraid if I don't read something, I'm not going to have my composure. So I actually remembered a letter that I wrote to Reuven's mother. It was, I think, the 60th anniversary. And I want to share what I said to her because I think it sums it up. I know I told this to you on more than one occasion, I feel the need to repeat it as you celebrate today. As a son of American-born parents, I cannot comprehend how someone can live through the Churban, lose one's entire family, and go on to build their lives and raise a family. And while I have had the privilege of knowing some such people, and I'm humbled by all of them, you are very unique to me. Somehow, in a way that's totally and absolutely beyond me, you're able to rebuild your lives and go on to raise a Reuven Gross. While I know that each of your children is special in their own way, it is Reuven that I'm privileged to count among my closest friends, whom I observe with amazement on a regular basis. In other words, Mrs. Gross, I'm an expert witness regarding him. I sit in shul every week, marveling at the kehillah that he and the Rebbe and Pearl have built. A kehillah with diverse members representing virtually every derech and avodas Hashem and every level of Torah knowledge. They range from Talmidei Chachamim to those who cannot read Hebrew, everything in between. From black hatters to, I'm not going to even list all the things that I said because to Reuven Gross it was meaningless. Other than black hats. To those that don't even own their own yarmulke. And Reuven has created a ruach of achdus and growth in Torah that is unique. The Navi Yeshaya says, Habitu al Avram Avichem, this is not from the Torah. Habitu al Avram Avichem, al Sorat Cholelchem. Look at Avram, your father, and Sarah gave birth to you. Ki yochid kurasiv, because I called on him as a yochid. So the obvious question is that it mentions Avram and Sarah, and kurasiv is singular. So the Mepharshim say that it's referring to both of them. Maharal says that because Avram and Sarah were on the deepest level one, they were so united that the Nabi would say, Echad Kurasiv, they're one. And I have to say that in the hundreds of hours in the office and the schmoozing, and just observing the shul, I know that Reuven and the Rebbetzin were one in everything that took place in this room, in this shul, in the community. They were literally one, as the Maharal describes Avram and Sarah. Then I wrote, this event is the weekly drasha. Every Shabbos I look around the room and notice that he has the absolute attention of every single person in the room. And I marvel at his ability to speak to this diverse group and deliver a message which is relevant to all. He manages to elevate, challenge, inspire, and transform them, literally transform them. Being that I was Zocha to learn yeshiva for many years, I used to think that he does a great job talking to them. You know, if you know anything about Talmidim Rav Hutner, it's kind of hard to inspire them because they were exposed to the greatness of Rav Hutner, the depth of his thought, and his knowledge, and unique ideas, and inspiring and uplifting. And then I said to myself, I realized he never fails to speak to me as well. Every single, I heard his first drasha in the first Shabbos. I heard every drasha almost that he said, and every single one of them elevated me, without exception. And he didn't repeat. There are actually two drashas that I remember that repeated, but for whatever reason, I never had a chance to tell him. But one actually repeated twice, but he didn't repeat it, and I marveled. Even recently when he was sick and he didn't know if feel up to it, and he said he felt bad asking me, can we make a conditional? If I can speak, I'll speak. If not, you'll speak. I said, absolutely, don't worry. If you can't speak, I want you to speak. I hope you'll speak, but I will speak if necessary. Then he got up there. I can't imagine, how did he do it? How did he prepare it? And I once asked the Rebbe, she said she doesn't know either. She doesn't know. He had this depth of thinking and this power of words. He'd always speak with such sensitivity for people's feelings and with understanding of where they were holding. When you bring a novice into a shul in our community, even the best, the reality in our community that people will say things sometimes that sound bizarre to other people looking from the outside, or that might strike them as insensitive or just bizarre. And I never, ever had to do damage control after a drasha from the Reuven roast. Never. The Talmid Chacham can be moved and inspired, and the person who doesn't own his own yarmulke can be inspired and say, wow, this is really amazing. When you combine this with a Seichel Yeshara, with which to guide people and wonderful midos, you end up with the Rabbi Reuven roast. I stand in awe of your ability to rebuild your lives and to raise a wonderful family, and home filled with Torah, simcha, and love. As I said, I read this because it's the only way I could speak, by reading something. And also, I want to echo like Rabbi Plotnick said, this should be a message to all of us and a comfort to all of us. That I'm writing to a woman who at one point in her life could not possibly see that she'll ever smile again, let alone have a family. And look what came from her. So it should be an inspiration to us that we are in pain, and many of us, like was said before, we're lost. We don't know what's going to be. We have to learn from what Reuven Gross represented as a child of his parents, that somehow we will find the koach and we will go on and we will perpetuate what he stood for. And I want to say that in the room, sometimes we'd come into, we'd say, I wonder what something about you, or vice versa, 5 minutes, and then we speak for an hour. And during that hour we get phone calls, and I could tell sometimes it was one of the children, sometimes it was the Rebbe, and just you got a lesson in how to speak to people, and the pride that he had in every single one of them, and his children, each one of them, each one is different, unique, and he took pride in the fact that they're different and unique. And each one is a diamond and special, regardless of their character traits, their midos, their strengths, or their gender. Now, I want to say that, that very often, like Litzvisher Gedolim, who didn't have any sons, they had a daughter perhaps, they put a lot of effort into, they lived with their daughter, they had to learn with somebody, right? Like Reuven had one daughter, Reb David is a Talmid Chacham, that's the reality. Right? But he didn't learn with Shoshana because he doesn't have any sons to learn Gemara with. He delighted in learning with them, but he delighted in learning with Shoshana. He put so much effort into her because he felt that she can become a tremendous Opedas Hashem as well, and he took pride in the fact that she learned that she was elevated, inspired, and so in that respect, again, there was this unique appreciation of every single one of them. I want to end with one thing that Reuven wrote to a family that was in Avelos. Reuven wrote that, Levavi nishbar l'risisen, my heart is broken into pieces. It says, please send one piece into the heart, in this case it was a mother, please send one piece of my broken heart into the mother's heart, that maybe she could have nechama. My heart is broken. I think that the heart of the entire Kehillah is broken, and I'm sure that the heart of probably everyone here and the whole community is broken. And I could echo Reuven's words that we want to send to the Rebbe, and to the beautiful children, a piece of all of our hearts, that it enter into their heart and give them nechama, and always treasure what Reuven was to me. In the last time I visited him recently, I came in and he says to me, "Nu, this is what I look like." So I told him it's temporary. But I didn't tell him because I didn't have time. It was a short visit, To me, he looked exactly the same. He was malchus. I don't care how much a person weighs. You still saw that his character shone through, his smile. To me, he was the same malchus, the same dignified, the same great person that he always was, and that's how we should always remember him. Yehei zichro baruch.
Now call upon the Rabbi's oldest son, Rabbi Oriel Gross, for Divrei Hesped.
I'm like, I'm standing by the stand over you. Where I said your Josh is from. I said to him, when you're Mechab, somebody else too. I'll talk about you now. The Gemara Ksubis describes the Ptira of the Yehuda Nasi. The Kapar is Pasach v'Omer. Eilim Tzukim Achsub Ar Nekadesh. The Malachim and Tzaddikim, those who are down here, are holding the Ar Nekadesh. Notzcho Eilim Tzukim. The Malachim won over. Those who are down here, the Tzaddikim down here, are holding the other side. V'Nishbar Ar Nekadesh. This is what Kapar said about Rabbi, and this is what we can say also. We saw this so clearly over the last few days since Shabbos, when my father was brought to the hospital, and there were different times when he came in, when he called to come in with the Shabbos, and other times he came in, we thought, we told this was it. But no, continue for longer. And no one should think that there was so much has done over the last few days. So many chosim are generated in tefillas, and my faith, look, didn't work. The truth is, we saw the tefillas working, and they did work. This could have ended on Shabbos already. This could have ended on Sunday. Could have ended Monday. There's all time. It's not measured in days or hours. It's measured in minutes, seconds. Each one that was precious to us, so to have more time for us to spend with our Father, more time for people to come visit, spend time with Him. Every tefillah, every tzchus was worth it. But now, He's not here anymore. Who can help, who cannot be now? Abba, you are a rock, you're the one we always relied on for everything. There's halacha shaylas, always able to call for advice. You don't need a Shmuel Kamnetsky to tell us, you can go and see down to the heart of any issue. Stop today, whether it's advice in Hadracha, or advice in other things. Just 2.5 weeks ago, I forgot exactly, I came in to visit for a day. And we were busy trying to rent a car for something that ended up not being relevant. It's supposed to be in New York now for a chasna. And it's legal holiday, it's hard. My wife told me before I went, discuss it with Abba, ask him what he thinks, what's the best way to go about doing it. We talked about anything. And everyone else here feels the same way. Who can go to now? Who can we talk to? The last drasha that I heard from my father was actually not here. It was in Minneapolis. He came in for a kiddush. My daughter Chedva, he spoke in shul. He spoke about one of his favorite topics, the luxury of speaking of something, of repeating a drasha they said, the Indians said many times, because speaking to the audience. And he spoke about Yaakov's midah teferes, the midah of balancing all sorts of different midas, how they all work together in sync without contradicting each other. This was a topic that he loved to talk about, came from Adasser, one of his favorite svarim. But it's something that defined him. He had so many different parts, so many different aspects to his life. Someone not like him may have felt that there were contradictions, different things pulling in different directions. But for him, everything worked seamlessly together. He was definitely a busy person. He was involved with the shul, with his talmidim, with the community at large. Whenever you read sometimes things written about chashuv people, it says the children will say they always have time for them. I wonder if they're really telling the truth. You know about us, he always did have time for us. Even though he was so busy, whenever you called, he's ready to talk about anything. Anything I wanted to talk about, he was ready to talk about. For as long as I wanted to talk. Whether it was the learning, whether it was the almos, tam shmuzing, always gave us as much time as we wanted. Anyone in our family knows what the way the Shabbos and Yom service would look. The father, you sat at the head of the table, and all the boys in the family would not be facing each other with their heads turned, all looking at him. There's no such thing as just schmoozing among each other by the meals. Everything was centered around you. Ask anyone, there's something to talk about, something to joke about, but this is the way it was. No matter what we asked him, there's always time. And Yeshayla never rushed. And that's the way it was with us. I've heard this way it is with other people also. It's balancing his busy life with the people, the real people he's talking to. He's balancing the way he dealt with any situation, never drawn to any extreme just by emotion. Everything was thought through. Never just going along just because this is the way the flow is. I would test my own. Yasher said that's something he was kind of from his Rabbi test my own by talking to him about things that I thought about to see whether I was mechamen the way he thought or not. This is the measuring stick of what it means to have a seichel yasher. He was someone who knew about the world outside. He knew he was able to talk about anything. He never let it change. There's no such thing as changing anything about a set of priorities. His priorities are always ruchnis, always Torah. Everything else is only as a meshamish to that. Nothing more. And that's the only thing that gave it any chashivas. In the balance when it came to situations, in the hard situations, able to see the good, see the chasadim. The situation, the machal that started, we found out about a week before Shoshana. There were definitely very hard times. Everything was at the Baruch Hashem. He told me towards the beginning, that I don't think it worked out, but he wanted to make a notebook of all the chasadim that he saw during this time. Talk about how good the doctors were that Hashem gave him, how open they were to him, and he always get a hold of them, and how every time he came to shul, every time he was able to get out, every time he was able to learn, he was always makar tov for everything. He didn't let the fact that things were hard not let him see the good affect his emunah in any way. It's appropriate for such a person. It seems the last thing he said the night before the bleeding started his brain, the mother told him that she's leaving, and they weren't letting her stay the night in the hospital. And he put his eyes, his hand in his eyes, and said, Shema. Sona was lived at the Mona. Those should be his last words. Despite the position that he was in, the chashuv position that he was in, he didn't let it take him away from being the best father and the best deity in the world. A few years ago, one of my children is talking about measuring who the funniest ADs are. No, my Shver is watching this, I hope he doesn't get insulted. But he said the funniest AD is AD from Bar Park, my father's father. The second funniest AD is Zaidi Gross in Chicago. You play with them, joke with them, fun with them, vacations. My oldest son Shali had Zeicha to have a churus to shaft with him. Fish B'Sech Shoshana. I see him on Sukkot. He's already sick. He started Yuma. He learned what he could. Didn't always work out. Just wanted to know. When his son heard how sick he was. Just wanted to know who's going to finish Yuma with me. So much to say, and I have time for everybody else. One thing he never forgot is to give credit who credit was due, to always a makatayv to anyone who helped him. Reish V'Rishayin, there always makar the place that my mother has in everything that he did, being behind him, everything that he did. We like to say, it's a joke, that before he started the shul, people knew him. My mother's already a famous teacher in Eretz Crown. People knew him as Mrs. Gross's husband. And when he started the shul, he was known as Rebbe Gross's husband. We always attribute the atzaf of the shul to the child. And I was with him 2.5 weeks ago. He was in the hospital after passing out the day before. And the truth is, the nurses were driving him a little bit crazy with not letting him do things that really, at that point, he could do without a problem. Things got worse later very quickly, but at that point it wasn't like that. And he talked to me about it when they weren't in the room. Or when I brought it up. But to them, he always was polite. Always with a please, always with a thank you. And always answering their questions in the way that was mechabed them. So, you have to also do what he would want to do now. And be makar tov to all the people who helped us. First of all, to Ben Shalom, who has been holding our hands throughout this entire matzah from beginning to end. He always saw it, and we always saw it, especially with his help, with my father's help in seeing it. And I could take the doctors, brothers, Dr. David and Dr. Hertzke Greenblatt. He always felt gave him the best care possible. Not just in the medical advice you're getting, but in always being available for him. When this first started, when my Rabbi Pinchas Achnutz was trying to help us out, he had a son-in-law with the same machla, and he was talking about people will give you connections, you read stories, they have to find some way to get into the doctor, to be able to get a hold of them. But then they were always open. Father said that they talked about the chesed, that whenever he sent a text, whenever he made a phone call, they're always available, always call back right away. Just the last few days, last while, Dr. Greenblatt was there. So I don't know which time zone he was going with because he's always available whenever we need to speak with him. There's no particular order, but it's Tzliach. I don't know if Chicago realizes how lucky they have to have someone like him over here. He's with us every step of the way, from the beginning, giving advice on which doctor to use. And we personally saw it in the last few days that we were in the hospital. It was available for the big things and the little things, from the medical advice to the food and anything in between, anything they need, that we need help with. Simcha Frank, the head of the Chavah Kadisha, helped us out today. Rabbi first, who answered every shayla every time he called. He was been out of town last few days. He made himself available anytime we needed to call him. Middle of the day, middle of the night. To guide us, halacha, ashkafa. I'm in Tanki, and I had a crown for all that they did for my parents this year, and Rabbi Samer, an area crown for all the help they did this year. Rabbi Misha Katz, for taking over for the drashas. whenever needed. All the people who came to visit, I want to mention particularly Shmuel Shaya Keller, the Yeshiva, who came not to see my father, but to see us, to mechazik us, particularly my brother Yeshua Tzvi, but came in before Yeshua Tzvi was back. We all learned maybe for a year or two in Tels, but still consider us Talmidim, who came to mechazik us. It was a very big chazik. This was the hugs he gave us. My Uncle Yael, my mother's brother, who came in, wasn't able to stay till today because of the snowstorm, and he was here and stood by our side for a few days. To the entire community and my father's students, all those who feel so connected with him here and everywhere else. And there's so much to generate chusim for him, learning, davening, chalabik, so much more that I'm sure we don't know about, and even though I'm sure we'll hear more, but there's so much that we'll never hear about. I want to mention one particular person, I'll to those who are watching from Minneapolis, who helped out with my wife and the family the last few days. Only now we can realize how much of a beautiful community we live in. Last but not least, I want to thank the beautiful Kehillah that's here. My father nurtured this baby from the time we started the shul. And now, at the time when we were in need, stood up, to give us whatever capacity needed and so much more. Show how much they feel they owed to him. All that skanim, that took care of every detail that we didn't have to think about. All those who made food, took care of children, and anything else that had to be taken care of. Should know shul, members of the down the shul and his talmidim, you're also his children. You also have to carry on his legacy. Legacy of a serious, but joyous davening. The learning, he told me when he built this building that his favorite room of the whole entire shul is the Beis Medrash. I want to echo something that was said by the previous speaker, would say the way he would have said it. He always loved a letter that was written by Rav Dessler right after the war, which found the same words. He was very excited to see that was said by Al Meir Bloch after the war. That in such a situation with so much things destroyed, I think you just sit down and mourn. His lashon, I believe, was Loi v'loi elef pa'amim loi. Just going to be buy and buy. It's just build and build and build. Continue on the legacy that he started with the help that he'll give us from that by being mevakish by the kiss of Kavod Shemayim for all of his children and the Kehillah. But you were Zeicha till the age of 60 or so, about to continue to learn from your father, as we always saw. We were not, but not by seeing you. We have you in our hearts. Always hold on to that. Continue to learn from you always. Continue on the derech that you set out for us. I asked my mother, was any ethical will of tzavah written? She said, of course, we don't need it. We know what you wanted from us. We're going to continue on the path of Torah, Tefillah, Chesed that you set out for us. Yishon on derech. To continue to give you nachas and shemayim. And I want to ask Mechila. He asked Mechila in the hospital, just repeat, ask Mechila on behalf of us, whole family. You talk to us very easily, in case we ever not mechaber you correctly. I'm sure there were times like that. Ask Mechila, and we know that you're Mechilas. Baruch Hashem, Dimen al Kapanim, and Amen.
We now call upon Rabbi Chaim Gross.
Where are you? You're supposed to be. We have so much more we want to learn from you. I was last week, it's a few days ago, I was telling my daughter Adina that it would be a good idea to cry to Hashem to make you better. And she said to me, yeah, Kindlech cry, but Abbas don't cry, right? You never cry. Abbas don't cry except when they lose their Abba. They cry a lot. It doesn't end. But do you remember a few years ago when you were honored, you and Mommy were honored for the 25th anniversary of the show? And we put in an ad for you. I got to write the ad. And I wrote the same thing that Ariel mentioned. You did so much for this tzibur, so much for the community. You were always so busy with other people. But never did it come at the expense of your children. You always had time for us. You had all the time in the world for us. I told you then that if it were up to us, we would have given you the Parent of the Year award instead of being honored by the show. We always felt about you. From the time that I was, ever since I can remember, I remember you teaching me Aleph Beis, teaching me the sound of the shin, and I would say shh, and you'd say chutzpah. You say shh, father. I remember you teaching me to ride the two-wheeler down the block on Chase, running after me, picking me up when I fell. You always picked me up when I fell. You always gave me the strength that I needed. You taught me, all of your children, so much. When I was younger, it was about less important things, but still important things, like taught us to love nature when we would go on our trips. He would have us all lie down on the grass and look up at the stars and marvel at the Neflois HaBorei. Take us on hikes, waterfalls, all those sorts of things. There was such an appreciation for Hashem's world. We marveled at it, and it grew on us. It became part of us. Friday nights, I remember, was a favorite time. When we'd come home from shul, after, of course, fighting who would get to sit next to you, because we all wanted to sit next to you. And you would walk us home from shul. I remember Ariel and I, when we were little, and you'd grab our hands and you would run with us, and fly us off the ground. We always beg for you to do it on the way home. Can you fly us, Abba, please? Pick us up. We got home by the Shabbos Suda, and then we would get to the highlight of the week. The highlight of the week was when after singing Shalom Aleichem, you'd call us over one by one, and you'd put your hands on our heads. You'd say, Simcha, Kim, Kim, Rabbi, Chanash, you would kiss us on the head. Say good Shabbos. Abba, what I would do for one more bracha from you. Just one more. We would sing the Zmiros with you. Sometimes we would take our chairs over and push it next to yours. And we'd all put our arms around each other and sway back and forth while we would sing. After the meal was over, on the long Friday nights, when it wasn't late, we would sit on the couch, cover ourselves with a blanket, and you would read to us stories. First, when we were younger, you told us stories, Torah-playing stories, the imaginative, creative stories that brought the parsha to life for us. And then when we got older, you would read the Marcus Lehman books to us, and other novels that would inspire us. We would treasure that time forever and ever. And I would go to sleep. Before going to sleep, of course, you would give me a big hug, and I would squeeze tight, and you would say, give me a Chaim hug. And I would squeeze even tighter and say, that's a Chaim hug. And you would tell me, you're my favorite Chaim in the whole world. How many Chaims do you know? Didn't really matter. We got older. We became chavrusas. We learned so many things together. Mishnayos for preparing for the bar mitzvah. Taught me Gemara. When we got older, I always made sure to learn with you on the phone. We went through Avdesta together. Sefer Kuzari, Sefer Ikrim. There was no sefer that was too difficult for you to explain with wisdom, with chachma, to bring it to life. Chinuch, he gave a bad for us on the phone. How to be mechanech our children. You taught me how to approach difficulties in life with pikchas that everyone is talking about, with wisdom, with seichel yashar, incredible, incredible seichel yashar. Taught me how to be strong. I remember for the years that I was in shidduchim, it took a while, and there'd be many nights, and I would come back after another attempt, and it wasn't negaya, it wasn't going to happen. And I would be in a parking lot, in the car, late at night, exhausted, disappointed, broken. And I would tell you on the phone, Abba, I don't know how I'm going to get up tomorrow morning. I don't want to face another day. And you would say, I know, but I also know that you're very strong. And you're going to do it anyways, because I know that you can. You gave me that strength, Abba. You taught us dedication to the tzibur, to the shul. I remember once we came back here, it was Simchas Torah night. We had gone home to have our Suda after the dancing. It was extremely late, and you realized that there was no cleaning help coming that night. And we said, tomorrow morning, the shul is going to be not going to look mekabedik. We all came back. I remember you on the floor, just in the back over there, picking up lollipop sticks so that the shul should look mekabedik. No one else was around, and the shul still looked mekabedik. We made sure to do that. It took us on a Shad Rabbah, Arab Yontif, to clean up, to sweep up the leaves from all that rubbish around the floor before the shul became more organized and everything was taken care of in the earlier days, to make sure the shul has to be mekabedik. dedicated. I remember once, Pesach night, the Seder night, in the middle of the Seder, you realized that there was someone from the shul that had gotten into a little bit of an accident, a biking accident, and you forgot to call them and ask them how they were doing. In the middle of the Seder, the two of us, you and I, we ran, it was many blocks, we ran over to the person's house to ask the wife, how's her husband doing? He was in the hospital, not for anything serious, but to make sure that everything's okay. We ran back, dedication, something that you put into us, dedication to the cloud, to the tzibur. Most of all, I would say, is that you taught us to always be mevakesh the emes, to seek out the truth. Always told us, if something doesn't smell right, don't go for it. It's sheker. You have to always be mevakesh the emes, and only the emes. That's what you did. You fought for emes, and you taught us to fight for that as well. And of course, you taught us, all of us children, as Ariel mentioned, to appreciate Mami, her chashivas. We were so proud of everything that she did. So we learned from her to look up to her. And we always will. We always will. Just want to finish off. Abba, do you remember just a few nights ago in the hospital, you weren't doing well, and I was going to say goodnight to you, and I said, Rabbi, Abba, I'm giving you a kiss. I couldn't kiss you because you were afraid to. I gave you a kiss, and I said, Abba, I'm blowing you the kiss. Did you catch it? And you said, you nodded your head, and you gave me a kiss back. So last night, when you were still conscious, I said to you, Abba, I'm going now. I love you so, so, so much. You were so weak, you couldn't answer back. I said, Abba, please, tell me that you love me. I really want to hear it. You said, I love you. Abba, I love you so much. There will always be a hole in my heart where you'll be. I remember you forever and ever. Forever and ever and ever. Just want to say one thing, Abba. I know you'd want me to say this to the tzibur, whatever's been saying, but I remember by the 10th anniversary of the shul, you were honored, and you started off your speech by saying that the shul is named Shari Tzedek. You said, if I would ever have to change the name of the shul, not that I'm looking to, but if I would have to change it, I would name it not Shari Tzedek, but Anshe Tzedek. I said, what we've seen over the last week, and we always knew it, but incredible, incredible people of this shul. So thank you everyone for all the support that you gave the family. It was beyond anything that we could have expected people to do at all hours of the night. People were there in the hospital constantly. I'm not going to mention the names, but you know who you are. And the people were there for us in the most incredible ways. So thank you very, very much. Yizucher Baruch, Melech Hashem Dima, El Kol Panim, Amen.
Call up Rabbi Yisrael Moshe Gross.
Abba. Abba. We had a chance the last few days. The doctor told us, you probably hear what we're saying. So we sat and we schmoozed, and we reminisced about everything and anything. Gave us some time, a little bit, but everything's so cloudy. We can't think straight. We'll try. Abba, we told you, like everybody's saying, you were rough, you were busy,
Nami would say at 11 o'clock at night, 11:30, where are you? She would call up, are you still alive? Where are you? Say, I'm alive, I'm coming home. You're busy. But you taught us. Yes, I was part of that vow that you gave to us on chinuch. But you didn't have to give us a vow on chinuch. Because you lived it and you taught us what chinuch meant. We always learned with you. As I grew older, I went to yeshiva and we used to talk. And I talked about how I learned with my father, and I had so many friends that said they never learned with their fathers. Fathers didn't have time to learn with them. Fathers had to hire tutors, not just because they didn't have time to learn with them. You always had time to learn with us. Start off Mishnayos, finishing Starm of Mishnayos for our bar mitzvahs. We went to yeshiva. We learned with you. I prepared for 10 years to Daf HaShavua with you, Thursday nights, late Thursday nights. And when you learned with us, there was nobody else in the world. When we called you at night, there's no one else in the world. There's only us. I moved to Chicago. I said, Abba, I'm learning with you. I said, I need a chavrusa second Seder. And you carved out the time. And we learned every day of Elul until Rosh Hashanah. After Rosh Hashanah, you got sick, you came and you said, so Moshe, you're mechayim me. And when we learned, the phone was off. There was no phone. It was just me. Family vacations, the phone went off. Answering machine was changed. In case of emergency, call my mother's phone. No phone family vacations. It's just us. You taught us that chinuch means show your children. I'm there 100% for you. Abba, you gave us such a strong chinuch. Shoshana told you in the hospital 2 days ago that you brought us up so strong. We are who we are. Nobody can change. Doesn't make a difference what other people think. We do what's right. We act a certain way. This is what's right. This is what's wrong. And it didn't make a difference who we were around, who we were surrounded by. We were proud of who we were. We looked up to you. We wanted to be like you. Every single one of us, when we were younger, if you would ask us, what do you want to do when you grow up? We want to be like my father. I think my father once asked, why do... He's like, all my kids just want to be in Klei Kodesh, in Chinuch, Rabbi. I said, Abba, we all just want to be like you. You taught us what was right, what was wrong. You had conversations with us, I remember in school, going through things, discussing, what do you think? Do you think this is right? Do you think this is wrong? Before I went to yeshiva, going away from home, sat me down. Going away, you have to know. You have to understand. Remember our chinuch. This is the way we act. And we had conversation. When you go to yeshiva, you have to remember this, this, and this. Don't forget. How about we're never going to forget? We would discuss everything with you. You gave us such clarity. There was only one time I think that I really argued with you. And I came back to you. I said, Abba, you were right. Because you're always right. But Abba, where are we going to go? Abba, where are we going to go? Yeshiva, Shidduchim, Chinuch, came here. Now you weren't just my father, you were my Rav. So I would go to your office and discuss things with you, like everybody else. As a Rav, you taught us so many things. You taught us how to appreciate every single person for who they are, how to learn from every person, how to machshav every person, how to connect to every person, and build a relationship with every person no matter who they are. You taught us that if you're able to mashpia, if you're able to influence someone, it's not a choice. You have to do it. You have to make sure that you're able to do it. You have to make sure you build up yourself up and have the capabilities to do it. And then you have to do it. If you're able to do for Klal Yisrael, you have to. A sense of achrayus that Abba you learned from your yeshiva. Responsibility for Klal Yisrael. Chaim said, Bikush ha'emes. You taught us to stand up for emes. You didn't care if it was what other people felt, what other people are going to think about you. You told us at some point, you're long past that. You don't care. You don't care what people think about you anymore. Now you just do what's emes. And we saw it in many situations. You stood up for the emes. There were times that people would come over, you would give a Joshua in shul. It's possible there might have been people that weren't happy. It happened. Sometimes people came. I remember talking not necessarily the way they should be talking to the Rav. You didn't answer back. You sat there quiet. You didn't change. Because it's MS is MS, and you stood up for it. It's not about what's going to make people happy. It's a question about what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from you. And that's how you have to live. Just on the end, there's so much more to say, but it's Erev Shabbos. You instilled in us a strong pride in our Messiah. From Zaidi, from Galanta, from Long Beach, from Babi, from Czechoslovakia, from Babi's father. You put it all together and you instilled in us a strong sense and pride in our Messiah. The Yontif Sudas, the Shabbos Sudas, Minhagim. Every Yontif, every Shabbos is filled with the Kedusha, filled with everything that you picked up from your house, you gave it over to us. This past Friday night, after the Suda, I ate at home. I said to Gershi, my son, I said, let's go visit Zadie. Let's go visit Zadie. And we walked over. You were resting for a few minutes. You got up. You were very tired. Very schwach. And we had to schmooze with you. And you gave my son the attention that you gave to every grandchild. You made him feel like he was $1 million. And then we sat and we sang. You sang with him all the Chanukah Nekudim that he learned in school. And we had 40 minutes. It was your dessert for the Suda. And we said goodbye. Didn't realize it was the last time I was going to take my kids to you. Abba, we're going to miss you. Abba, my kids are going to miss you. We're going to take that strong sense of Messiah. We're going to pass it down to our kids. Everything that we got from the home, we're going to give to our kids. We're going to continue it. Abba, go to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ask him to be a man Yosher. For Mommy, she's able to be strong. All of us. For each of us. For your Kehillah that you loved so much. For your Talmidim, your Talmidas. For all of Chal Yisrael.
We now call upon our Mayor Terbell.
Only son-in-law there's only me, so. But I never felt like a son-in-law. I always felt like a son. So I'm not going to talk like the son-in-law. I talk like the son. We lost the crown of the mishpacha, the king. Everyone just wanted to talk to him, always wanted to be around him. Again, it wasn't just sons, his daughter, his daughter-in-laws. Everyone was all the same. They all treated him all the same. All a special relationship with him. One big family, with no one married and everyone was all sons, daughters. That was the connection we felt. We came to the hospital Sunday. The doctor there, non-Jewish doctor, and she gave, the report that we all didn't want to hear. One of the daughter-in-laws called her out, started screaming at her, you don't know, you don't realize who this is. Don't just give such a terrible sack, you don't realize who this is. He's our king. He's he has such a big family, such a big community. Just to come in and say it so coldly, she couldn't handle it. To see again how we had the same, everyone cared the same way. Whether it was someone who married in or all our father. I remember by the 25th anniversary of the shul, we couldn't make it in. I remember what the reason was. I was watching it on the Zoom, and I was thinking to myself, how's it? Well, such a beautiful community, shul, kehillah, such a beautiful mishpacha, not stam mishpacha, elite mishpacha, the hybrid mishpacha. The schos of being part of it. How did it all happen? What was the secret that Abba had, that he was able to bring up such a family? When I say family, I'm including the kehillah. They're also part of the family. When the kehillah was coming to the hospital, I told him, it's not that there's people from the shul coming. These people are part of the family. There's not one person from the mishpacha that even cared for a second. The only time that there was, right at the beginning when we thought it was over, so we wanted to have the mishpacha there. Right afterwards, when we had time, let everybody come in, whoever wanted to come. All one big family. Everyone feels the same way. What was the secret? What was the secret of Abba, that he was able to connect with everybody? Son-in-laws, daughter-in-laws, kehillah. Everyone felt they were so close to him. I think the answer is that Abba had a tremendous respect for everybody. It didn't matter who they were, what their shita was, where they came from, where yarmulke, didn't wear yarmulke. I'm not saying he agreed, I'm saying he had a tremendous respect. He always respected everybody. It was a way of giving, and it's the ultimate giving. You give a person respect, you give a person chashivas. The biggest giving a person could give, you make someone feel like a person. That was the way Abba connected to everybody, brought everybody close. By just listening to them, hearing them, connecting with them, you always felt like he heard you. Afterwards, after he heard you, gave it respect, he not always, agree, but that was, he always knew that he heard you and he treated you as a person. Whether it was someone coming over to make a joke, to say a riddle, to retire, he was listening to the person, he was seeing the person, it was all the same. Of course he wanted to hear the Vitero. It was the person that he was listening to. And that person was treated the same way no matter what it was. It was in how he treated people. He also treated decisions like that. Remember different things we asked him over the years. And whenever you look at a question, a lot of times you don't look at all the different stuff and the different sides to it. You sort of take your side and you don't see the other sides. He always gave chashivas to the other side, the other side. Even if he didn't agree to it in the end, he would say, at what expense does it come out? It's very nice that they're doing this and it looks good, but at what expense does it take a toll on the wives or whatever it may be for doing this type of chashiva thing? Always take everything into account. Again, he gave chashivas to even the tzad that you would have said, don't look at it. When he did chashivas to it, he would see it. And then he would be able to make a decision of what he thought was the right way to go. It was an eye-opener, that it wasn't just only one way, my way, whatever the person was thinking. He always took into the other account that there may be other reasons to do things a different way, and you have to always weigh it, which one's better. That way of connecting to people, connecting, making decisions, he was able to bring people, infuse in people kedusha. Once you feel that you're respected and you're a person, and what your question, your shaila is something that deserves to be listened to and heard. Afterwards, after the person has that connection, the person gets that connection, it's very easy to inspire a person to give them to kedusha. You always first need to connect to the person, get to know them before you start pushing ruchnias and different things that might be hard on them for whatever reason. That was his way of doing things. We first connect with the person, get to know them, give them respect, give them chashivas. And then his drashas would come, Shabbos, and his drashas were always about putting the kedusha in your everyday life somehow. Recent events, whatever it may have been that he wanted to talk about. It was always about the kedusha, building up the kedusha, and then putting the kedusha into our everyday lives. When we leave, we always remember Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and then when we leave to the regular everyday life. We're not malachim, we're regular people, and we have to put the kedusha into it. And the reason why he was all very accepted was because everyone felt that he respected them. So he wasn't putting it on them that they have to do this. It wasn't his way of doing it. He was, as a friend, as someone they felt really wanted the best for them. He was telling them how to lead their life, how to guide them, how to do the right things. I remember I was sitting on Realist, I was by Shiva, my father. Abba came and sat down in front of me. Sometime, didn't say a word. I was talking about different things about my father. He was making that connection. That was the connection. The connection was, just listen, be quiet. And I remember leaving off with one word. And this word was the infusion of just infusing the kedusha. Something I could say, all I could say is emunah. You believe, you don't know. My wife keeps on saying, all the good people that love our kids, us. Just keep living. It's not easy. Cats came over to me and my wife in the ICU. He said, your wife had a special place in your father-in-law's heart. I always saw that he tremendously respected her and he loved her. But I never knew, what's the difference between her and all the other brothers. He loved everybody, respected everybody. What was this connection that he built with her, that the cat was talking about? I understand he went with her, he went with the brothers. What was the connection? I was thinking about it. It's hard for me to know. We've been married the whole time, and I never really was able to pick up too much of what the differences were. I was thinking about it. I remember there was a letter that my father-in-law wrote to my wife when she got married. He wrote in the letter, there's some things that I wish we could have done again, and I could have did them a different way. But that's where the connection was built. That's where it was built in the challenges they had together, and the respect they had for each other. And we miss them tremendously. Us, our kids.
Call on Yaakov Yochanan Gross.
Instead of thought coming in today that I think he once commented that when we got into Aron, luchas on the top are jagged. It's not a Aron, it's not a luchas looked. The luchas were perfect. So I think is that it reminds you of the Shivi luchas. You took the luchas to Shabbat, you left us with the Shivi luchas to Shabbat, you left us with the Shivi luchas, left us broken. I was thinking that over here it's not like one. This one is it's not like a few people, like a small family. Everyone here. How many Yisayim right here? Hundreds of Yisayim. Everyone's family, the Shar Tzedek family. I want to mention one thing which you really placed, or a very special place in their hearts, and you and their hearts, and they had a very special role in your hearts, which was, if I could say, the girls that came to you for advice. So many hundreds and hundreds of girls who came from the academy, came from TI, and some of them had challenges, and a lot of them had a lot of different challenges. You gave them hours and hours and hours and days and weeks, and upon it, you gave them your whole heart, and they became mamash, your daughters. So many girls, so many hundreds and hundreds of girls, is not to be believed. There's one thing that struck me recently, which I don't know, it hit me recently. What it was is that everything you did was so real. There was nothing that was like a superficial action. There's nothing that you did that you're very against doing things just because everyone else did it. There's nothing, and the reason is because everything has to be real. It has to be that's where you're up to, and that's what
what you're doing, because that's what you're holding by, and that's your madriga, and that's where you are, and that's what you feel, and that's a real thing, and that was you. You're completely MS. There's nothing that you did that wasn't MS. One time, I think I asked you, I said, Owl, you give beautiful drushes, but you didn't give these fiery tshuva drushes, get up in shuls, right after the tshuva. He said, it's not me. It's not me. It's not that you didn't think that everyone has to do the tshuva, but it's not me to get up and give a mussar shmooze, that everyone has to do the tshuva. That's not me. So if that's not me, so that's not what it was. You didn't do anything other than what was completely real. It's very short the way that how did you build such a kehillah? How did you build such a big family? It says how did you build such a thing? And it wasn't just because you gave brilliant advice. It's because you gave every single person your heart, your full heart. Every single person that came to you, they knew that they had your heart. Anyone who came over to say good Shabbos Friday night, every boy. It wasn't just the people who come over. Every boy. You had the right word to say to every single boy, every single bar mitzvah bacher, every single boy, every single child who came over to you to say good Shabbos. You always knew what to say to every single person, and you give them a smile and you made them feel good. Every single person. And you always gave us the time to learn with us. I felt bad the last few years. We didn't learn the last few years. I was thinking you really should restart it. Every single child had a Chavrusha. I don't know, last night, the texts, the emails were coming in, that one after another. Please read this to Rabbi Gross, please read this to Rabbi Gross, please read this to Rabbi Gross. And if you know how many people relied on you, just as completely as a father, if you know how many people relied on you, and they don't know what to do, and we don't know what to do, and so many people, one after another. I thought that there's a good chance that Hashem's going to hear what's going on. There's going to be a nace. I thought there was a good chance, and in the hospital we saw a funny thing that on Wednesday the numbers started going the other direction. They started going up instead of going down, and this morning was the first morning that I wasn't woken up in the middle of the night, that it looks like, maybe now it's time to come, maybe it's time to come. We came to the hospital, it was relaxed, things were easy. And then, B'Pesach Pisayim, you left us 1 second, you left Basar Shemayim, and you went 1 second to the next, you weren't here anymore. There was no preparation, there was nothing. They told us to give us a half-hour warning when things are going down. There's nothing. 1 second to the next, you weren't here anymore. One thing that you got so much nachas from was the growth of the soul. Remember years ago that and it was on Purim, he called it Rabbi first. He said, Rabbi first, I have this and this amount of money from the shul, give you so much nachas. The shul's this and this amount of money, Rabbi first, you can distribute this money, give you so much nachas. And another thing which was this is your baby, the last, the 10 years, the first years I think more dedicated to the davening. But as the shul grew and it grew with Bnei Torah, and people grew in their learning, it became a new focus, the learning in the shul. And it started with Yarchei Kalo. Started Yarchei Kalo, gave you such a drive. The Yarchei Kalo, 2-3 nights after Pesach, had 60, 70 people learning together. The next step was Shavuos. He said, this is not the way to Shavuos. Other people have their way of doing Shavuos, but this is not the way to stay up Shavuos and just to have inspirational speeches. This is not what it's about. We have to have one sugya that we learn together. 50 people come. You'd come after Shavuos. Shavuos is unreal. We danced before Shachas. We danced. We had a Rikida before Shachas that we were Kabbalah Malchus Shemayim after we Kabbalah Al Torah after the learning. The next step was shifty. Your dream. Everyone in the shul knows what your dream was. You said to yourself, your dream is they wanted to bring a kayal to the shul, and that's your dream. And everyone in the shul should just know that this is and as they started, and you noticed everyone starting that. This is what you would ask every single person in the shul. Keep on studying in your learning. Keep on growing. Keep on learning. Add more and more learning. Make the more learning more and more part of your life. Night Seder, if you have an opportunity now. Second Seder, if you have an opportunity. Every learning that you can do, add more and more learning. And Abba, you used to speak on Tisha B'Av, you used to say After Chatzos, you read the letter from Rav Dessler about Kalm, that he would say everything is gone, 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 gone. But then at the end of the letter, Rav Dessler would see that there's a light. Everything's gone, gone, gone. But where's the light? Show us the light at the end. Show us the light. We're going to miss you a lot. Please be Mezisha for all of us. Please be Mezisha for us. Please be Meichel. Please be Meichel. Please be Mezisha for Mami, for the Mashpacha, for the whole Tzaddik family, for all your daughters and your extended, how many hundreds of daughters and all your children, and Tzaddik, all your sons and daughters. And for everybody who needs, everyone in the Mishpacha, some people need it more than others, every single person, please be say Sheish for everyone.
Calling Shabsai Yehuda Gross.
I'll be married. It's only been a few hours. We already miss you a lot. We already miss you very much. If there's one thing, like my boss spoke about, if there's one thing that maybe is your shayrish and the way you built the mishpacha with, it's after your ish masayra. Everything was about how could I do something that my father didn't do. Like he lived with the Mus'aviv, this Rabbi and Mus'aviv Befanos. What did my father do? I could do something different than my father. I remember that you spoke about mitzvah. You spoke about everyone we come from. You went to each side. All the chashuvim that we come from, and the chayas that we have to be like them. And really, it was not just about this. And Rabbi mitzvah spoke we come from because you couldn't speak about the parents. But really, I think everyone knows that every bar mitzvah you get up and speak about you're coming to we'd say was you're coming to this occasion well equipped. That's what you'd say by every bar mitzvah. You have to come to take what you get from your parents and to use it to go back there and to steig to learn from your parents. And that was who he was. He lived in such a prestigious Messiah that's how he was able to build the show like this. You had the Zmiris on Shabbos. We used to sing this Galantas Zmiris on Shabbos. It wasn't just that the Zmiris that we liked that the Zmiris were nice Zmiris, which they were. But it was that way of making the past real to us and making us that we live with the past and that's not we're not just something that we started today. It was something we come from somewhere. Remember by the star, you made such a big deal by the star that three generations, 4 generations together, and to come Mseiro. Now we have the star about all about Mseiro. So we're not going to be zeicha to have. I'm never going to be zeicha to have my children star with you. You taught us that the one thing you taught us very much was that you always did for us that you to bring us to our potential. You looked at what we needed, our potential. How you still felt that we could strive for to bring us to our potential. You worked on every part of us to whatever we needed. You always taught us that not to be like my brother spoke about. You always taught us not just be part of a group. Not to, if someone asks him what type is he, you'd say he's Jewish. He's not part of a type. That's not part of a group. He's not part of a group. You taught to do with what you think is right, and what you think is right, and not to look just because not just because what other people do, not because other people are doing it. Look to see what you think is right, and to use what you think is right, and to steig with them to do what you think is right. Yeah, like my brother spoke about, you had many
many daughters, we had Lashana said that she didn't have any sisters, but you had many daughters. That people that we don't know how many families that exist that are Shemet Termitzvah B'nai Torah learning Kailo really because of you. And it's not really because, I don't think it's because you gave shmuzin so much. It wasn't so much because you gave shmuzin. I don't think that you told them they have to do that. It's because you just, the way you were, the way being around you, that they learned from you. And you were there for them. And through that, they takashtaiged and they both went out to build mishpachas. But it wasn't so much the shmuzin, just being tachas your svivo, that's being tachas your svivo, that was where they grew from. Someone just mentioned to me recently in the hospital that everyone wanted you to go for a second opinion, and to see what it's a second opinion about what there is to do about this. They have, and you weren't interested in that because you understood that it's called B'yad Hashem. You have to do your status, and you have your shluchim, but it's really called B'yad Hashem, and it's not a biyadenu. It's called B'yad Hashem. And that's where we live. That's what you taught us. We need this bitachon. That's everything that we have. Everything we have. We have to status, but it's called B'yad Hashem, and whatever ended up happening. Kol B'yad Hashem. We have to be kabel. We understand it's not just us, that the whole soul feels like they're children to the children that really, that there's so many people that so many shpachas, so many people came that they're only the way they are because of you, Abel. And we didn't really fully, I didn't fully appreciate the full discourse to have a father like you. We didn't have that the years that we had. That I remember you told me that you gave me a chazal shmuz before I got married, just my chasana recently, and you said that I'm good before you have children. I'm going to give you chinuch. I'm going to give you a little bit tell you about how to raise children. I'm not going to be zeicher to that. But I definitely was not. Everyone else maybe I definitely was not. I definitely was not machabri korei. I didn't have the chashivas. I didn't appreciate the chashivas of having a father like you. And I want to be back the chilo. That zichos not machabri korei. And I hope you mechel. And we're going to miss you.
We call it shirts for gross.
It's very hard to be masked with a father, someone who was madrich me, someone who taught me how to live my life, someone who taught me what emes is, what yashus is, someone taught me exactly what Hashem wants from me, someone who used to give me mussar, if I wasn't doing something right, and I never had what to answer, and you tell me, telling you because I appreciate what you have to say. I tell you why you're answering me. Nothing to say. The person nothing to say was ish emes. Everyone spoke about, and to be very cancer. The Rabbi Bloch writes in his, wrote in the hesped on his brother that there's two ways of measuring the godless of someone. You can either measure by how much they stand out over everyone else, or you can measure by how much they lift everyone else up. He says, the godless of my father was not just about how much he was higher than everyone else, but how much he put in his heart and soul into lifting everyone else up, into lifting them up to be the highest they possibly could be. Whether it's in the mishpacha, whether the mishpacha trying to learn with us, come to yeshiva every week, learn with me, holding a be'ad, daf days. Last night we learned together, 3:10 in the morning, learned for a half hour, Mishnah Zochim, half hour, 45 minutes maybe. And the mishpacha, his talmidim, taking pride in how everyone, in every little bit of growth that everyone does. In the shul, every new tefillah, every new shir, every new the new shifty program, the new chabur in the afternoon. How much he took on no pleasure in it. Why? Because what makes a difference is Kodesh Shemayim. What makes a difference is that Hashem's Ratzon is in the sky. But with all of his gadlus, there was not a kihu zeh of gaiva. So such an honor, it was unbelievable. When Shiva Reb Chaim Dave Kala was nifter, I heard from someone who was there, and he was very unclear why the Shiva Reb Chaim Dave came to be Menachem Oval. And he said, it's in my schus because I ate by his house, something. He came to him because he's a Rav. He's a Rav. He's a chashuv person. He couldn't understand it. But with all his anivos, there was no shiflos. It wasn't that he didn't hold of it. When there's something that he needed to be done, when he felt that was the right thing to do, and it came to COVID, and he took a position that others didn't take, took it with a tekifus. I remember I told him I'm very proud that I have a father who stands up for what he's saying, what he holds up. He said, it's not usually what I do. This is the right thing to do. Other people don't hold that way. This is what we're supposed to do. There's really no time. But what's going to be in the future, it's going to be hard. I won't see you by my chasana. I know you'll be there. You'll be there in Ruchnias. So what? I won't see you. So what? I have to see you. You'll be there. Rabbi Yochanan says that Ruchnias is much more real than Gashmis. You'll be there. Just 2 weeks ago, I think, you were saying that starting the treatment, the Mitzvah Shema work. So I told you that Rabbi Shmuel Zatzal said from the Shalom, Atzas Hashem, he is Sokum, he is Rosh Tevis, Im Yitzah Hashem. Im Yitzah Hashem. So if you say Im Yitzah Hashem, if you have Bitochen, then it will be what you want to be in the sky. He said, he told me, he said, no. He said, but Atzas Hashem is Sokum. What Hashem wants, that's what's going to be Sokum. If you have Bitochen, then what's going to happen is what Hashem wants. And then I didn't respond correctly. I said, you heard what I said? You heard what I said? What's going to happen is what Hashem wants, not what we want. And then we're just going to have to believe in that. And but you don't have to worry about us. We're going to continue. We know what you wanted. You wanted Kodesh Shemayim. You wanted Kiddushim Shemayim B'Rabim. That's Avodah. That's what we're going to do. And we know that's what you want from us. And this one is Bechila for not in Bechad Yekoi. Shuzaycha Masha Machasham Kim Tima Malkopan and Filim.
This concludes our Hispadim for today. There's no Kelmali because of Hanukkah. The Kavura will be in Eretz Yisrael, in Beis Shemesh, in Eretz Chaim Cemetery, approximately 7 p.m. local time. The Rebbetzin and the Chaim in Shoshana will begin sitting Shiva late Motzei Shabbos. The rest of the family will begin in Israel, returning in Chicago on Monday at 3014 Chase. Details are forthcoming. We didn't yet send out our Shabbos announcements this week, but we're getting together to hear tonight the Achdus and have the Shabbos the Rav would want us to have. Mincha's at 4 p.m., Licht is at 4:03.